Hello, and welcome to the July 2026 edition of Florida by the Numbers. I'm Sheridan Morby, Senior Director of Economic Research for the Florida Chamber Foundation. As always, the Florida Scorecard is tracking Florida's economy in real time, bringing together all the data points I'll be highlighting today, along with hundreds more at both the state and county levels. This data is updated as soon as it's released, so you can get everything you need to know in one place at thefloridascorecard.org. Let's start with some big news. Fun fact, did you know that on July 17, 1821, the United States purchased Florida from Spain for $5 million? Well, that investment continues to pay off. Recently released state and international GDP data shows that Florida is now the 14th largest economy in the world if it were a country. The size of the economy is measured by GDP, or gross domestic product, which represents the value of all goods and services produced in an economy. Consumer spending makes up nearly 2/3 of Florida's GDP, helping explain why our state's economy has grown so rapidly alongside its population. To become the 14th largest economy, Florida surpassed number 15 Mexico and is now only 2% behind number 13 South Korea. To surpass Canada and become the 10th largest economy, which is the Florida 2030 Blueprint's primary target, Florida's economy will need to grow by 21%. One of the biggest drivers of Florida's economy is our labor market. Florida added jobs on a year-over-year basis in June 2026, marking the third consecutive month of job growth following several months of losses earlier this year and in late 2025. Florida gained 30,700 jobs, an increase of 0.3%. This growth rate is the same as the nation's, which is good news for Florida's labor market after lagging behind the U.S. for many months. Florida's unemployment rate dropped slightly to 4.7%, although this is still higher than the national rate of 4.2%. One metric that plays an important role in Florida's long-term economic success is education. New K-12 assessment scores were released, and Florida's early learners, who are tomorrow's earners, are seeing increased proficiency. Here we are taking a look at Florida's latest third grade reading scores, which reflect that 60% of Florida's third graders are now reading at grade level, an increase of 3 percentage points from 2025. Breaking this down by county, Glades County has the highest proficiency, with over 80% of third graders reading at grade level. More positive movement is happening in Madison County, where there was an increase of 18 percentage points in overall proficiency. You can see how Florida's students are performing in your county on thefloridascorecard.org. Demographic-based third grade reading proficiency data is also available, broken down by many student indicators. Indicators such as economically disadvantaged, students who are homeless, or English language learners, to name a few, help us better understand what's driving higher and lower proficiency rates. While all of the indicators shown in the graph saw an improvement year over year, students who are homeless have significantly lower proficiency rates, while students in charter schools have higher than average scores. Shifting focus to prices, inflation saw a drop for the first time in months in June. The national inflation rate is now 3.5%, meaning consumer prices are 3.5% higher than they were a year ago. This is a 0.7 percentage point decrease in the inflation rate from May. A drop in energy prices is the largest driver of this slowing in inflation. Despite this decline in inflation, there is still potential for rate hikes in the near future, as the Fed is signaling that price levels are still elevated above the target 2% inflation rate. Florida's housing market has now seen year-over-year increases in single-family home sales for 10 consecutive months. It's worth noting, however, that June 2025 was a relatively weak comparison month, so part of this year's increase reflects the lower baseline rather than a dramatic acceleration in the market. In reality, the increase in sales was not quite as significant as it seemed. But while headlines and uncertainty in the economy have framed the housing market as potentially in trouble, increasing sales are ultimately a strength. Looking ahead, inventory will be a focus, as there has been little annual change in new listings, and slower active listings have played a part in slight upward pressure on prices. I hope you and your leadership team are registered to join us October 27th through the 28th in Orlando for the Future of Florida Forum and Florida Chamber Annual Meeting, also known as F3. With a spotlight on Florida's long-term economic prosperity and global competitiveness, Florida's business, political, nonprofit, and community leaders will review what the future of Florida looks like, what's working, what's not, and how we're doing on our progress towards achieving the 39 goals of the Florida 2030 Blueprint. Seats are filling fast, so be sure to register now by scanning the QR code on the screen. The Florida Scorecard and our team's accompanying research and analyses on these metrics are made possible by the Florida Chamber Foundation's community development partners, companies that have a statewide footprint committed to fueling the research and solutions for Florida's long-term economic success. If you have an interest in joining these companies, you can contact me through the information on the screen. To stay up to date as soon as Florida's latest metrics are released, we have a couple of resources to keep you in the know until the next Florida by the Numbers video update. In addition to regularly checking the Florida Scorecard, be sure to follow @FloridaBTN, which stands for By the Numbers, on X, where these and other updated figures are posted regularly. If you have any questions regarding the topics covered today, or if you'd like to get involved in the Florida Chamber Foundation's work to secure Florida's future, please reach out to me through the information on the screen. Thank you for watching this month's Florida by the Numbers. We will be back in August with new employment statistics and more updates on Florida's evolving economic landscape.